Hey everybody, this is Becky Rabin with Flips and Finds. I'm outside today out in front of my garage with a coffee table that I painted yesterday and allowed it to dry. I did a weathered look on it with chalk paint and actually saw a post on Pinterest with a stencil design. So I have a lot of stencils that I've used over the years, and this one actually is a wall stencil. And I'm going to put the stencil in the middle of the coffee table and stencil it with a white chalk paint. White is really a color I rarely use. I like to choose an off-white or a ivory for my painted furniture, but we're going with white today because I did such a weathered look, and I used probably 4 or 5 paint colors and then went over this with an antique glaze that I really want something to pop out from the stencil, and I thought white would probably be the brightest color to do that. I don't know if you can tell, but the bottom is actually painted more of an ivory, and I've kind of done a shabby chic look because I did a darker color underneath. So we've already chalked off, and when you use a stencil on painted furniture, you always want to go ahead and measure out the middle. This is a pretty big stencil. Again, this is a wall stencil. I've never used it on a wall. I've just used it really on tables and other pieces of furniture. And it has pretty good guidelines on it. And I think you can buy these at Michael's, and they have dotted guidelines. But I like to use chalk just to kind of mark off the middle. And so I've kind of put a tiny cross right here in the middle of the table, which I know you really can't see I'm pointing at. But before I put the stencil down, I'm going to put spray adhesive under it. Actually, I use the Loctite spray adhesive, but you want to put a spray adhesive on the back to make sure that it gets down and it's not slipping while you're trying to paint it. So let me go ahead and spray that adhesive on the back. And I like to use cardboard for something just to kind of lay the stencil on top, and you want to go up and down and across several times. And then place it again in the center, and this is going to about be where the center of it is using my guidelines. I don't know if you can see, but this stencil actually has some dots on both sides that line up with the center. So both of my ends are kind of equal, and then I'm about in the middle of the coffee table. The next thing I do is I take a roller. I actually bought this at a Goodwill, but I think you can probably find it at any craft store. And I roll it, press firmly down, and roll it out from the middle to make sure you get the stencil down and you don't have any bubbles in it. Because if you're like me, you get kind of rough with the stencil and get carried away. And if it's got a lot of cutouts, the foam end of the brush that we're going to use gets stuck on the corners, and it could pop up, which could leave paint going underneath the stencil, and you don't want that to happen because when you remove the stencil, it's going to glob. So anyway, just roll it a couple of times and go over it until you feel comfortable that every piece or every cut area appears to be down. And I really touch the ends a lot because that's where it might roll up. And like I said, if you get fast and furious like I do sometimes, you don't want anything to pop up. The next thing I'm going to talk to you about is when you use a chalk paint, get a thick chalk paint. I like to use the Waverly chalk paint from Walmart or the paint from Michael's. Don't get any of their outdoor or semi-gloss paints to use on something like this because it's a more liquidy paint and it tends to run a stencil. So you probably want to get a chalk paint. Even the little acrylic paints that have been in bottles that you can buy for around $1 or so, don't get those. They're very watery. Stenciling paint is actually a thick paint, and I've used that on a couple of things, more metallic stencils, but I like the chalk paint, and I like to use these foam brushes that you can buy cheap. I started off using round brushes, but I don't really like the way they have the effect on the stencil and the furniture that these narrow sponge brushes do, and you can buy them like 10 in a pack, Big Lots, Walmart. These you want to go up and down and blot. These I can kind of go across and they have a little angled edge. So they work for me better, and like I said, they come in a lot of different sizes. We're gonna use a medium size one today to get started. And I always like to put my chalk paint on a flat plate whenever I'm doing a stencil, because I like to be real sparing with the paint. I don't like to get a lot of paint on the foam brush, or if you want to use a regular brush, you can try that, but you're going to probably get streaks in your paint. But just dip it down lightly, and then you can just start rolling over the stencil. And you can see I'm just kind of lightly going across it, and you can go back and see. In fact, you can go back and forth, but just don't get very carried away with it. But the brown in this case, or the weathered look that I was going for, sometimes the corners don't get it, but you can very easily go back and get all your spots in the corners. And I probably go over my stencil several times. Now this one's probably going to take a while because it has a lot of little dots, and the more intricate your stencil is, the longer it's going to take. But anyway, just keep going up and down. And sideways, if you go sideways, go very lightly, because you want to make sure, again, your stencil doesn't come up. If you're not already a follower of my Facebook page, please like Flips and Finds. I'll put the results of this table on my Facebook page so you can see it, or you can also find us at flipsandfinds.com. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye.